The moment Jake Sullivan recognized the homeless woman huddled against the brick wall was his ex-wife Sarah, the mother of his child who had walked out 5 years ago, his entire world shifted on its axis. What happened next would not only break him but rebuild him in ways he never thought possible. This is a story about second chances, forgiveness, and the unexpected paths that lead us back to what matters most. If you're moved by this story, please consider hitting that like button and subscribing to the channel for more content that explores the depths of human connection and resilience. Jake clutched the grocery bags tighter as the winter wind cut through his coat. Another long day at the construction site followed by errands before picking up his daughter Emma from after-school care. At 38, his life had fallen into a predictable rhythm: work, parent, sleep, repeat. The divorce had been finalized 5 years ago, when Emma was just 3. Sarah had struggled with addiction for years, and one day, she simply didn't come home. The note she left behind said only that she couldn't be the mother Emma deserved. He was passing the entrance to the subway when he noticed her. A thin woman with a cardboard sign, her face partially obscured by a tattered scarf. Something about the way she hunched her shoulders made him slow his steps. When a gust of wind blew the scarf from her face, Jake froze. Despite the hollowed cheeks and dull eyes, he recognized Sarah immediately. Sarah? The name escaped his lips before he could stop it. The woman looked up, confusion giving way to recognition, then shame. She scrambled to gather her few belongings, preparing to flee. "Wait," Jake said, setting down his groceries. "Sarah, is that really you?" She stopped, shoulders slumping in defeat. "Jake. You shouldn't see me like this." 5 years of anger, hurt, and unanswered questions surged through him. He had rehearsed this moment countless times in his head, what he would say if he ever saw her again. But standing there on that cold street corner, those practiced words evaporated. "Emma asks about you," he said finally. "Every birthday. Every Christmas." Sarah's eyes filled with tears. "How is she?" "She's 8 now. Smart. Stubborn. Looks more like you every day." A painful silence stretched between them, filled with the noise of passing traffic and pedestrians hurrying by, oblivious to the reunion unfolding. "Where are you staying?" Jake asked. Sarah gestured vaguely. "Around. Shelters when I can get in." Jake noticed her trembling, from cold or withdrawal, he couldn't tell. The rational part of his brain screamed warnings. This woman had abandoned their daughter, had chosen drugs over family. But another part, a part he thought had died years ago, ached at seeing her reduced to this. "When did you eat last?" he asked. She shrugged. "Yesterday, maybe." Jake made a decision that would alter the course of their lives. "Come with me. We'll get some food, and you can get warm." Sarah hesitated. "I don't want your charity, Jake." "It's not charity. It's..." He paused, searching for the right word. "It's humanity." The diner was nearly empty when they arrived. Jake ordered coffee and food while Sarah excused herself to the bathroom. When she returned, her face was cleaner, her hair smoothed back with water. "I tried to get clean," she said as she slid into the booth. 3 times. The last time, I made it 6 months. Jake nodded, unsure what to say. The waitress brought their food, and Sarah ate slowly, deliberately, as if savoring each bite. "I don't expect anything from you," she said between mouthfuls. "I know I gave up that right when I left." "Why did you leave like that?" The question that had haunted him for years finally escaped. Sarah set down her fork. "I was using again. I knew you'd find out eventually. I thought." Her voice broke. "I thought Emma would be better off without a mother than with one who couldn't stay clean." Jake felt a familiar anger rising. "So you just disappeared? Do you have any idea what that did to her?" "To me? I was a coward," Sarah admitted. I've regretted it every day since." As they talked, Jake learned that Sarah had been homeless for nearly 2 years. Before that, she had moved between cities, jobs, and relationships, always sabotaged by her addiction. Her most recent attempt at sobriety had ended 3 months ago when she lost her job and couldn't afford her medication for depression. "What do you want now, Sarah?" Jake asked as they finished their meal. She looked at him directly for the first time. "I want to get clean. For real this time. Not for you or even for Emma. For me. But I don't know how to do it alone anymore." Jake drove Sarah to a motel that night. He paid for a week in advance and promised to return the next day. As he drove home to relieve the babysitter and tuck Emma into bed, his mind raced with doubts. Was he being naive? Setting himself up for more heartbreak? What would this mean for Emma? When he arrived home, Emma was already in pajamas, her math homework spread across the kitchen table. "Sorry I'm late, Pumpkin," he said, kissing the top of her head. "It's okay, Dad. Mrs. Rodriguez helped me with fractions." She looked up at him curiously. "You look weird. Did something happen?" Jake sat down beside her, wondering how much to share. "I ran into someone I haven't seen in a long time." "Who?" Emma asked, her pencil poised over her worksheet. "Just an old friend," Jake replied, not ready to tell her the truth yet. "Hey, how about we make hot chocolate?" The next morning, Jake called into work, claiming a family emergency. After dropping Emma at school, he drove to the motel, half expecting to find Sarah gone, the room empty. But she answered his knock, looking better after a night's sleep and a shower. "I made some calls," Jake said, handing her a coffee. "There's a treatment center that has an opening next week. 90 days inpatient, then transitional housing. They have a good success rate." Sarah stared at him. "Why are you doing this?" "I'm not sure," Jake admitted. "Maybe because despite everything, you're still Emma's mother. Maybe because I remember who you were before the addiction took over." "I can't afford treatment," Sarah said. "My health insurance will cover part of it. I've been saving for Emma's college. I can use some of that." Sarah shook her head. "I can't let you do that. Consider it a loan," Jake said firmly. "When you're back on your feet, you can pay me back." The week before Sarah entered treatment was tense. Jake arranged for her to stay at the motel, bringing her meals and clean clothes. They talked for hours, filling in the gaps of their years apart. Jake learned that Sarah had tried to call once, about 2 years after leaving, but had hung up when he answered, too ashamed to speak. On the 5th day, Jake made the hardest decision of all, to tell Emma about her mother's return. "Emma," he said that evening as they sat on the couch watching her favorite show. "Remember how you always ask about your mom?" Emma nodded, suddenly alert. "Well, I found her. She's been sick for a long time, but she wants to get better." Emma's eyes widened. "Is she coming home?" "No, honey. She's going to a special hospital to help her get better. It's going to take a long time." "Can I see her?" Emma asked, her voice small. Jake had anticipated this question and had discussed it with Sarah. They had agreed that seeing Emma before treatment might be too emotional for both of them. "Not right now," Jake explained gently. "But maybe after she's been at the hospital for a while, if her doctors say it's okay." Emma was quiet for a moment, processing this information. "Does she still love me?" Jake pulled his daughter close. "She never stopped loving you, Emma. Her sickness made it hard for her to show it, but she always loved you." The day Jake drove Sarah to the treatment center was rainy and cold. She had few possessions, just a small bag of clothes he had bought her and a worn photo of Emma that she had kept all these years. "I'm scared," Sarah admitted as they parked. "I know," Jake said. "But you're doing the right thing. What if I fail again?" Jake turned to face her. Then you'll try again. That's all any of us can do. As they walked toward the entrance, Sarah stopped suddenly. Jake, I need you to know something. Leaving you and Emma was the biggest mistake of my life. Not because my life fell apart afterward, but because I threw away the only real family I ever had. Jake nodded, unable to speak past the lump in his throat. The first month of Sarah's treatment was the hardest. She called Jake once a week, as allowed by the program. Sometimes the conversations were strained, other times tearful. Jake attended the family therapy sessions, driving 2 hours each way every Sunday. Emma drew pictures for her mother, which Jake delivered. When can I see her? She asked repeatedly. Soon, Jake promised, though he wasn't sure himself. 6 weeks into Sarah's treatment, her counselor suggested a supervised visit with Emma. Jake prepared his daughter carefully, explaining that her mother looked different now and might be emotional. The meeting took place in a small room at the treatment center. When Sarah saw Emma, she dropped to her knees, tears streaming down her face. Emma hesitated only briefly before running into her mother's arms. "You're so big," Sarah whispered, holding Emma tight. "I missed so much." "Dad says you were sick," Emma said, pulling back to look at her mother's face. "Are you better now?" "I'm getting better," Sarah replied honestly. "Every day." Jake watched from the doorway, his heart breaking and healing simultaneously. The road ahead would be long and uncertain. Sarah would need to complete her treatment, find employment, establish stability. There would be setbacks and difficult conversations. Emma would have questions and possibly anger as she grew older and understood more. But in that moment, watching mother and daughter reconnect, Jake felt something he hadn't experienced in years: hope. 3 months turned into 6 as Sarah transitioned to outpatient treatment and a halfway house. She found a job at a local bakery, starting at 4 a.m. kneading dough. The early hours suited her recovery schedule, allowing her to attend evening meetings and therapy sessions. Jake and Emma established a routine of Saturday visits. Sometimes they went to parks or museums, other times, they simply shared meals at the small apartment Sarah eventually rented near her work. Emma began spending occasional overnight visits with her mother, supervised at first, then on her own as trust rebuilt. 1 year after finding Sarah on that street corner, Jake sat across from her at the same diner where they had first talked. "Emma's teacher says she's doing better in school," Jake said. "More focused. Happier." Sarah nodded. "She told me she's joining the science club." "She gets her brains from you," Jake said, surprising himself with the compliment. Sarah smiled sadly. "And her resilience from you." They sat in comfortable silence, the kind that only comes from shared history and mutual respect hard-won through difficulty. "I never thanked you properly," Sarah said finally. "For stopping that day. For not walking past." Jake considered this. "I almost did, you know. Walk past. I was so angry for so long. You had every right to be. Maybe. But anger was eating me alive. In a way, finding you saved me too." Sarah reached across the table, hesitantly touching his hand. "I don't expect us to ever be what we were. But I'm grateful for what we are now. Co-parents. Maybe even friends." Jake nodded, turning his hand to briefly squeeze hers. "One day at a time, right? Isn't that what they say?" "One day at a time," Sarah agreed. 2 years after that fateful encounter, their arrangement had evolved into a functional co-parenting relationship. Sarah had maintained her sobriety, advanced to manager at the bakery, and moved to an apartment closer to Emma's school. Jake had started dating again, tentatively opening himself to possibilities he had long since abandoned. Emma, now 10, flourished with both parents in her life. The trauma of abandonment would always be part of her story, but it no longer defined her. In therapy, she learned to express her feelings about her mother's absence and return. Some days were harder than others, but the foundation was stronger now. On Emma's 11th birthday, they celebrated together, Jake, Sarah, Emma, and a few of Emma's friends. As Jake watched Sarah helping Emma blow out her candles, he reflected on their journey. The man who had found his ex-wife begging on the street had been broken by the encounter, broken open in ways that allowed for healing, forgiveness, and growth. The comfortable numbness he had lived in for years had given way to the full spectrum of human emotion, pain, yes, but also joy, hope, and compassion. Sarah caught his eye across the room and smiled, a genuine smile that reached her eyes that were clear now, present and engaged in the moment. They had both been broken by addiction, abandonment, and loss. But in that breaking, they had found a way to rebuild something new, not the family they once were, but a different kind of family, one forged in the fire of second chances. As Emma opened her presents, laughing with her friends, Jake realized that sometimes the most broken paths lead to the most beautiful destinations. Their story wasn't perfect. Recovery was an ongoing process, not a destination. Trust, once shattered, never quite reformed in the same way. But imperfect as it was, their story was real, a testament to the resilience of the human spirit and the healing power of forgiveness. That night, after the party, as Jake tucked Emma into bed, she asked a question that caught him off guard. "Dad, are you still mad at Mom for leaving?" Jake sat on the edge of her bed, considering his answer carefully. "No, honey, I'm not mad anymore. I was for a long time, but not now." "How did you stop being mad?" Emma asked, her eyes serious in the dim light of her bedside lamp. Jake thought about this. "I guess I realized that being angry wasn't helping any of us. Your mom made mistakes, big ones. But she's working hard to make things right. And holding on to anger just keeps us stuck in the past." Emma nodded, processing this. "I was mad too. Sometimes I still am." "That's okay," Jake assured her. "You're allowed to feel however you feel. The important thing is that we don't let those feelings stop us from moving forward." "I'm glad she came back," Emma said, snuggling deeper under her covers. "Me too, Pumpkin," Jake replied, surprised to find he meant it. "Me too." 3 years after finding Sarah on that street corner, Jake stood in the back of a small gathering, watching as Sarah received her 3-year sobriety chip. Emma sat in the front row, beaming with pride as her mother shared her story with the group. "My rock bottom wasn't when I was homeless," Sarah told the room. "It was when the father of my child found me begging on the street, and instead of the contempt I deserved, he showed me compassion. That broke me in ways I can't explain, broke through the walls I had built to protect myself from feeling anything." Jake listened, moved by her words and the journey they had all taken. "Recovery isn't just about staying clean," Sarah continued. "It's about rebuilding what addiction destroyed: trust, relationships, self-worth. Some days, that feels impossible. But then I look at my daughter, at the relationship we're rebuilding, and I know that nothing, is worth risking that again." After the meeting, as they walked to their cars, Sarah approached Jake. "Thank you for coming," she said. "It meant a lot to have you both here." "We wouldn't have missed it," Jake replied. Emma ran ahead to Jake's car, leaving them alone for a moment. "Do you ever wonder," Sarah asked quietly, "what would have happened if you hadn't recognized me that day?" Jake had wondered this many times. "I think about it sometimes. But I've learned not to dwell on what-ifs. We're here now. That's what matters."